Hugh Freeze has landed the number one receiver in the portal. But what does that mean for the Freeze 4? What's up, War Report family? Welcome on into the Auburn Express. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for joining us here on this holiday week. Joining me, as he always does, is my guy, Kyle Rush from the barn. And look, there are no animals in the barn except for tigers.
There you go.
Hugh Freeze is adding some extra tigers to the barn here this week. Kyle, big news. Eric Singleton signs with the Auburn Tigers. Want to get your initial thoughts on this big signing, man. Number one wide receiver in the portal, number two player in the portal overall.
I think it eased a lot of fears. I think as time goes on and like kids, the time period from when they visit to when they actually sign, the longer that goes, the more nervous people get. And I think that was sort of like the crown jewel maybe of this portal class. And it's somebody that I feel like really completes this wide receiver room. I think you got a lot of young talent and you got a lot of guys that can do different things, but you just don't have a lot of bodies and you don't have a lot of experience. So this guy to me completes the room, and I think it's cool that he could have caught passes from Arch Manning. He could have gone and caught passes from anybody that he wanted to go to, and he chose Jackson Arnold and playing for Hugh Freeze at the end of the day. So. It's big, man. Anytime you get the number 2 overall player in the portal and that person is the number 1 wide receiver, you got to be happy with that. That's got to get you excited.
Does Singleton's addition make this the deepest wide receiver room in the SEC with Cam Coleman returning? He's going to be consensus first team preseason all SEC. Can we agree on that?
For sure.
There's no chance he's not first team all SEC along with Ryan Williams. I think those two guys will star. But with the success that Auburn saw from Keandre Lambert-Smith last year, Kyle, I think that Eric Singleton is prime to step in and have at least 80% of that production in 2025.
Yeah, but again, though, think about all the other mouths you got to feed, and think about all the other guys that are going to benefit from him being on the field with him. Like I was talking with some guys today. I mean, I feel like Cam, Malcolm, and Eric are going to be on the field the majority of the time. And like, man, think of those 3 weapons right there.
Yeah.
On the field, and Malcolm and Eric can jump inside. They can bump outside. They can go in motion. They can they can catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage and get yardage. They can hit you deep. You can go fast. You don't have to substitute. Man, it's just you got the weapons. You got the weapons. You can't really make any excuses. You can't lean on anything anymore. I mean, it is it's there. If you're worth anything, you ought to be able to make it happen with this crew.
Last year around this time, Hugh Freeze said, he put out a statement. I think it was a tweet that said, "We hit on all 4 of these guys." These guys being Bryce Cain, Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, and Perry Thompson. We saw Malcolm Simmons and Cam Coleman this year, Kyle, but we've yet to see a lot of Perry Thompson, and we haven't really seen any of Bryce Cain outside of camp. For these young guys, how do you get the best players on the field, but make sure that you're bringing your young guys along? This is a good problem. I want to stress this is a good problem to have if you're Auburn, right? Where you've got so much talent that you've got to figure out how to get them all on the field. I keep asking the question of Hugh Freeze. It feels like we're going through 2 off seasons together, and I'm like, are we going to see more 10 personnel? And the reason I'm asking that question is that you've got a lot of mouths to feed at wide receiver, and will there be some empty sets where will there be more 10 personnel with 2 slots on the field? What do you think we see here?
It's a great question. I go back to this. Think about last year. Robert Lewis played a lot of snaps. Cam Brown actually played a lot of snaps. You have these guys that played sort of in ancillary roles that got a good number of snaps. That the names you just mentioned could easily like absorb some of those snaps. Another thing is you feel like as this offense evolves and as offense which should increase their output even more so this upcoming season. It should increase your plays. That's one thing Auburn, I feel like on some of the games where the offense just wasn't working, you just didn't even run enough plays. You're in the mid 50s as far as total number of plays that you ran. That's going to give you more plays, which will in turn give you more reps. I think if they're patient, there's ways that you can work these guys in. It's kind of like watching Bruce sort of hone in on the rotations and how he gets his substitutions down. It's going to be a very similar feel with these wide receivers, figuring out who needs to get paired with who and when they can come in and situationally when it makes sense. You got to be diligent about it. You got to be organized. And I think you're going to have opportunities for these young guys. And hopefully you can put some teams away now. You can score some points and put some teams away where you can get young guys more experience instead of being in dogfights all year, with teams you probably shouldn't even be, in a dogfight with.
Payton Thorne had 199 completions last year. 37 of them went to Cam Coleman. 50 went to Keandre Lambert-Smith. 87 completions between those two guys alone. So obviously Keandre was Auburn's leading receiver in terms of yards and receptions. I believe he led in him and Cam tied with 8 touchdowns apiece. Very, very good production for Auburn at wide receiver. Do you think that Singleton, who last season 56 catches, 754 yards, only 3 touchdowns, but can he fill in that +7, keep that yardage mark maybe the same, but toss in another 5 to 6 touchdowns?
What's crazy too is Malcolm probably could have had even more receptions if he had a fuller grasp of the playbook. There were some times where they were talking, missed assignments and things like that. So he could have even gotten more receptions. So I think Rivaldo's production and his receptions, that's going to be something that I wonder if you can work some of that into these guys and different types of slot usage out of, whether it be Eric Singleton, Malcolm Simmons, even Horatio Fields. I'm curious to see, because like you said, that's a fair amount of completions that you had, and the vast majority of it was between 2 guys. So how do you keep everybody happy?
Malcolm Simmons, for reference, 40 catches, 451 yards last year, 3 touchdowns, 11.3 yards per catch. So you've got to find there's a lot of this was, as much as Auburn seemed to struggle offensively, statistically, a lot of guys saw numbers that we haven't seen in a while at Auburn at wide receiver and at the same time, Kyle.
Yeah, exactly. They were able to spread it around. That if you look at it from an overhead shot and you don't even look at the records, you would say Auburn probably had a pretty good year based off of the statistics that you see that you just rattled off with those different guys. You just got to see it again. You got to make those turn into wins. And I think that's the next step of the process. And boy, oh boy, do you have some toys to play with to be able to do that.
Look, Russ ruffled some feathers on Twitter a couple days ago, talking about Horatio Fields, who was also added to this room, saying that maybe, that he adds depth. Some people read that as me calling him a depth piece. I absolutely think that he will compete for time here. I just think this is a really good problem to have if you're Auburn. All these guys could potentially start somewhere in the SEC. And if you're Hugh Freeze, man, you got to get all of them on the field. But who is going to be Auburn's leading receiver this year? Is it going to be an incumbent, or will a portal wide receiver come in and take the crown? We're going to talk about that after a quick word from our sponsors. Kyle, this segment of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at Los Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Visit them at 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama. If you're in the Auburn, Opelika area and you're looking for some sweet eats, Los Amigos has you covered. Chicken enchiladas, the burrito is my favorite there. And obviously chips and queso is necessary part of any healthy diet. Los Amigos has you covered. Visit them again at 1220 Foxhorn Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama. Also, this segment of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at Manscaped. Visit manscaped.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping, joining the over 11 million men worldwide who have trusted Manscaped with their personal grooming and care. Whether it's the boys upstairs or the boys down below. I don't know why you would have boys upstairs. I don't know why I said that. But take care of them. Either way, with manscaped.com, use code REPORT to get 20% off plus a free shipping. Let's jump back in here. Kyle.
If there's some boys upstairs, I got questions.
Sorry about that, Manscaped corporate. Anyway, look, Keandre Lambert-Smith obviously led Auburn in receiving last year. A lot of people will point to Cam Coleman as the leading receiver in this room next year. But is it possible that Horatio Fields or Eric Singleton steps into that spot and bursts on the scene the same way that Keandre Lambert-Smith did?
I don't see that from Horatio, just because I don't think he has the top end speed that Keandre Lambert-Smith did. But that doesn't mean I think he is going to be just a nobody, like a guy that's not going to get any production. And hey, back to your comment before we went to break, we only had 5 returning wide receivers. Anybody that you add is going to be depth.
Okay.
There is no depth. There was no depth. So anybody that you add, if anybody's mad about saying that a wide receiver is depth, hey, everybody that you bring in at this point in time is depth because we had none. So I digress. I digress.
For the record, I never said peace. Like people seem to add the word peace in there. I just said depth. This is going to be a really, really deep room, and he helped set a safe floor for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Raise the floor. You got to go. I mean, the safe bet's Cam Coleman, just because he's the more. To me, he's going to have the big playability. He's the guy that you got to lean on. He's going to be the leader of that room. I would still kind of lean towards Cam Coleman. See, people think you got to have somebody else step into the Keandre Lambert-Smith role. Why can't Cam Coleman step into the Keandre Lambert-Smith role? Why can't he be that guy and just be, but do it as Cam Coleman? I mean, and then have you have the other guys play the Cam Coleman role from last year. You know what I mean? Like I think he could end up being the guy that the quarterback looks to, like Peyton always looked for Keandre Lambert-Smith. I think why not Cam just slide over there and take that role? I think it could be that's who I'm looking at to take it over.
Going back to the Iron Bowl, that touchdown that Cam Coleman caught is as good a touchdown as you will see in college football, right?
Yes.
I mean, reaching over, guy, he showed everything, strength, athleticism.
Bad throw, and he went back and got it.
Got it, man, and just reeled it in. This was peak Cam Coleman, and you expect that you'll see more of that if he can develop any chemistry with Jackson Arnold, who right now I think we can assume is the presumed starter for 2025. Sure. Can we agree on that? Ashton Daniels.
He's not even going to be here till May or June. So
right. Okay. So he's not even going to be here in the spring, but he projects to be your backup quarterback. Look, I think that there was a conversation had with these receivers about that quarterback position and how much they plan to throw the ball this year and, what the plan is to get them the ball. I'm assuming I don't have any inside information there. I want to be clear. I just think there had to have been a conversation saying, we're going to get you guys the ball. We're going to find a guy to get you guys the ball even more this year, because as much as you think Peyton Thorne may or may not have struggled, I think statistically he had a pretty decent season. By the numbers, he had a decent season.
Sure.
You understand that it has to get better when you have all these high-profile receivers, Kyle. So to me, you're selling them to say, hey, come on back. It went okay last year. If you're Cam, I mean, look at your stats. You had 37 receptions, which was a little underwhelming, I think. I think we could have gotten on the ball a little bit more. But if you're Keandre Lambert-Smith, you had 50 receptions. When you look at what's the kid that led from LSU last year that went? He was like the first receiver taken.
I'm totally drawing a
Right,
blank.
you're falling out of my mind right now.
Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors, right?
Yes.
Those guys are in the like 80 to 90 reception range when you look at it. Luther Burden, those guys are up there. What are the chances one of these guys can Auburn have a receiver with almost 100 receptions on this roster next year?
That would be. There's just so many mouths to feed. You're talking about what you have to sell them. I mean, I feel like what you saw last year was a pretty good sales pitch as far as no, don't look at the win-loss record. Look at just the stat column. We got the ball to multiple players. We got a lot of people involved, and this offense has the ability to have a feature guy that can close in on 1,000 yards. Like we can have this offense can produce 1,000-yard receiver. So I think you got you had a really good sales pitch last year. And now you're saying, hey, we brought in theory, maybe a quarterback that's got a little bit more tools, higher rated out of high school, all the accolades that you can ask for. Maybe you can unlock a little bit of more potential out of this offense, solidifying the offensive line. Again, it's just a matter to me. I think you can have that Keandre Lambert-Smith guy, but man, 100 receptions, that's a lot of receptions, especially when you got all these mouths to feed. I think there could be a 60 to maybe a 60 or 70 yard guy, 60 or 70 reception guy. And if that guy, if that's the case, then you're definitely, you should be over the 1,000-yard mark. With the way this offense is, as explosive as this offense can be at times.
If Auburn makes a bowl game, Keandre Lambert-Smith is a 1,000-yard receiver. We agree, right? And then if you're Cam Coleman, you finish with 598 yards. You definitely break the 600-yard mark, but you possibly break the 700-yard mark with a big game. That one extra game would have produced some prolific numbers, I think, for this receiver room based on Auburn's history, right? I know that may not be very prolific at some other schools where they pass the ball more effectively over the years, but certainly on the Plains, that would have been really, really above average. We talked about who we think the leading receiver is going to be. You think it's going to be Cam Coleman?
I'm sticking with Cam, my man Cam.
Yeah, it's really hard to bet against that. Our good friend Zach Blackerby over at Locked On Auburn had an interesting pick in terms of receptions. I think he thought Robert Lewis would be the leading receiver in terms of receptions.
I remember that. Yeah.
That didn't pan out, but I understood why he made that pick, though. Sure. I did. I understood the logic. But who is Auburn's second receiver? We're going to talk about that after our quick words from our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has you covered. I got Richard over there is serving up a different kind of gift to this holiday season. They put a little something nice in every order that comes in from the War Report when you use that code REPORT. Again, 15% off plus free shipping from our friends at the Rogue Shop. Auburn's second leading receiver. Who's the guy? Now, there's been a lot of talk about who that guy on the other side of Cam Coleman is going to be. Right? We knew that Cam Coleman was going to start no matter what, but Keandre Lambert-Smith came in and he was a dog, man. Is it Perry Thompson? Can Perry Thompson break the top two on the outside? I think that he's got to make a move this year. Certainly, he affirmed his commitment to Auburn on social media. I love that. I love that he did that. There was some speculation about, could Auburn lose anybody this offseason in that wide receiver room, given how things went this year? And they seem to have held on to the Freeze 4 completely. Is Perry Thompson make a move, or is it one of the other guys that comes in as Auburn's second leading receiver?
It's tough, and I don't necessarily think this is a knock on Perry.
Okay,
but I just feel like those other two are so far ahead of him. And that being Malcolm and that being Eric, it's hard to imagine that Perry's going to step in. And I could be wrong, and I would love to be proven wrong, that he could step in and then just absorb a lot of those catches that these guys are going to draw. Like these guys are going to draw a lot of targets just from them being on the field and how explosive they are. And Perry's explosive as well in his own mind, but still I almost wonder if I've been talking about this, and I almost wonder if Perry needs to kind of try to carve out a role as like a big slot,
Yeah.
or like maybe even that detached tight end. He's 230 pounds, like 220 to 230 pounds. Like he could easily be that guy to eat up those catches in the middle. I just wonder sometimes he's got the straight line speed, but do you have the quick in and out of your breaks to be able to have that be able to run that complete route tree? Maybe he's still there's still some, there's still some little fine tuning and some perfection that he can put in the time in the offseason to get better. But it's those guys. I mean, Eric Singleton is, you can't take him off the field. And then Malcolm, he's a touchdown from anywhere on the field as well. So I don't think this is a bad thing. And I'm not saying that he is, less than. I'm just saying that I think those other two guys are not going to come off the field very often. So how does Perry fit in that equation to where he could somehow usurp them? I don't know that I see that.
Let me say this. There was so much emphasis put on recruiting from high school by this coach and this coaching staff, and in saying and making sure that fans understood the way to build a consistent winner is through strong high school recruiting.
Sure.
I tell the story often. I saw Hugh Freeze on the court after Auburn had beaten Florida for the SEC tournament in Nashville. And I said, Coach, when can Auburn fans expect to celebrate your first SEC title? And he said, I need 2 more recruiting classes. This was this past spring. Obviously, basketball season has started already. We're into another season, but that's this class and 1 more class. And then he feels like, hey, we're going to be in prime position. So you would want to see some of those kids that he's talking about continue to develop, and going into next year, you're right on the cusp of something special. Yes, is what I would think, and that's personally what I want to see based on what the coaches said. Right? Like, is there a flaw in that thinking?
I don't think so. It's just this would have been really easy had you not gone 5-7 last year.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Winning changes the conversation for sure.
You know what I mean? Like, winning changes the conversation a little bit, and you take the emphasis away on having to perform now, having to win now. And if you win 6 or 7 games last year, then maybe you could afford to take instead of trying to go fill holes with outside guys, you could just kind of take your guys and continue to build with it. But because of the way last season played out, there's a lot more pressure on this year. So it may take, instead of that, maybe I sit 1 year and I play year 2. Now maybe I have to sit 1 year, play a little bit more year 2, and then I'm ready to go year 3, if that makes sense. So where it's just sort of slowed down that fast track to playing time, if that makes sense. It would have been a lot easier had last year not gone the way it did.
Yeah, definitely. Look,
kids don't like to sit right now, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, it's a hard proposition asking kids to sit. Now, if you're Perry, you sat, right?
You did.
Here. And now you've got to make moves, but that will be on Perry some. Again, we talked about Malcolm Simmons in the missed assignments. Can Perry Thompson? I think the only thing that keeps him off the field is not knowing what he's supposed to be doing. Hugh Freeze talked about Malcolm Simmons this past year. He said he goes 200 miles per hour, but sometimes it's 200 miles per hour doing the wrong thing. If you're Perry Thompson, I think you just have to make sure that that's not part of the conversation this year, because clearly all the physical gifts are there. So if he knows what he's supposed to be doing, going to be a really hard guy to keep off the field, in my opinion. But hey, look. We're just 2 guys talking Auburn football here. Me and my guy Kyle Rush. Kyle, I want to thank you for joining me today. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Absolutely. You can find me at thebarnauburn.com. You need to subscribe today. We'll get you caught up to date, keep you in the loop on everything that's going on with the portal the rest of the way, and then obviously the high school recruiting and team information as well. A great conversation, not a lot of riffraff, just a good old-fashioned conversation about Auburn football, and you'll get some good information as well. So check us out there, and then anywhere you get a podcast, the Top Button Podcast.
Love everything that's going over on the barn right now. Great friends of the War Report. Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We'll see you guys right here tomorrow on Christmas Eve with more Auburn Express.